Have you ever wondered how to make a handmade card? Or maybe you have received a beautiful handcrafted card in the mail and thought, I want to learn how to do that. Well, my name is Brandy and I'm with BrandysCards, and I've been teaching people how to make handmade cards for about 15 years. So I'm excited. I have started a 12-step beginner video series, and I've done that just for you. I'm so excited to show you that card making is a lot easier than you might think it is. It's a lot of fun to make cards, and of course it's a lot of fun to send those cards after you create them, right? So we're going to start today on our first video. Our first video, we're going to cut cardstock. That's right, we're going to learn how to cut our cardstock and our card bases. And then we'll move on to the next step video. And I hope you'll stay with me through the whole video series. Now, if you're wondering, well, how am I going to be notified? There's two different ways you can be notified. Make sure you like and subscribe. So if you find this video helpful, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel, to BrandysCards. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. That way you're notified when I post the next video. You can also go to brandyscards.com/beginners, and there you can subscribe as well. So I will notify you, when that next video posts. You can also see the whole list of videos that I have available for you that are coming. So you're going to want to make sure that you go over there and have a look so you can be ready. All right, so today we're going to get started, and we are going to cut some cardstock. That's right. So this is my paper trimmer. You're going to need a paper trimmer. There's lots of different types of paper trimmers out there, lots of them, and they all serve as different functions. But I love my Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer. I love it. I use it all the time. I get good, clean cuts. The blades are easy to take in and out. So I highly recommend our Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer. But regardless of the trimmer that you have, the bottom line is you've got to know how to use it. So here we go. You've got your measurements here at the bottom. You have this little lever that you can pick up. Here is your track. That's for your cutting. When you close it, you have two little things here. This is your blade. This one is your score tool. What I love about our Stampin' Up! Trimmer, it's a 2-in-1. You don't need a scoreboard. You've got one right here. And then of course you have your blade. Now it might be hard to see, but there's a little open notch in here that you can kind of get in there and wiggle that blade right out and change that easily. The same thing, if the scoring tool gets in the way, you can take that guy out, but be careful you don't lose him. You don't want to lose him. He's fantastic. Now this is really nice because you can score up to you can cut your cardstock, put a cardstock in here that's up to 17 inches. But today we're going to keep it simple, and we are going to cut our cardstock so that we can make a handmade card. So what I have here is I have a couple different pieces of cardstock, and they are 8.5 by 11. Yeah, they're just a standard piece of cardstock, but I want to make my first card base. But there's a couple different ways that you can do that. What you really need to remember is cut the paper in half. That's right. Start out with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and cut it in half, whether you want it long ways or whether you want it, the other way. So let me just show you what I mean by that. All right, so this is 8.5. This is 11. So we have our long edge, which is 11. We're going to open up our paper trimmer, and we are going to put our cardstock in our paper trimmer. And you're going to look at my inches down here at the bottom. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I've got 5, and then I have 5.5. Now, I love my Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer, and I just know that this line right here, that's 5.5. So it's kind of a little cheating, but it works, and I love it. So you're going to put that arm down. And then here is my blade. I'm just going to do a really nice, smooth push straight up that cutting board. And now I have two card bases. That's right. So 8.5 by 11, I cut it in half on the long edge, and now I have two card bases. Now here, let me show you one other thing. Maybe you're thinking, okay, how do they get that score and that nice line for those cards? What you're going to do is you're going to turn it 80 degrees, or 90 degrees, I mean, So there you go. Now we have our 8.5 edge. We're going to put it in our cardstock. So what is half of 8.5? Well, that would be 4 1/4. So we're going to go ahead and find the 4 1/4 on our cutting board. We're going to close our cutting board, and here's our score tool. Just a nice push up and down, and there you can see there's a nice score line in there. So there is your card base. Now, I have cut this also in white to show you that the front of your card base is 5.5 by 4 1/4. You may have heard stampers or other card makers refer to a standard A2 card base. That's what most of us use for our Stampin' Up! Handcrafted cards, and most card makers out there. So this is the front of your card. So whether you decide to have a landscape card that opens that way, or maybe a portrait card that opens this way, right? So that's entirely up to you, but the front of your card you'll want to remember is 5.5 by 4 1/4. And I'll share with you a little bit more about that here in a minute. So here you can see one sheet of paper, we cut it in half, right? Now here, let's take our cardstock, another piece of cardstock, and let's cut the short down, down on that short edge. So I'm going to set that aside. And here we go. So if this is 8.5 by 11, we just talked about where to score on that other one, right? So 8.5 by 11, half of that is 4 1/4. So let's open up our little lever, and we're going to find 4 1/4. Right there's 4 1/4. So we're not going to score it, we're going to cut it. Yeah, that's right, because we're going to make a different type of a card base. Again, 2 card bases, 1 piece of cardstock. I'm going to set that one aside. Now I'm going to turn this 90 degrees, and this is now 11, right? This is the long edge, and half of 11 is going to be 5.5. Close that, and let's go ahead and score it. So here you go. There's my score line. I'm going to fold it in half, and now I have another card base, and I could open my card either direction. Now remember, that card base actually finishes on an A2 card base. It finishes at 5.5 by 4 1/4. That's the exact same thing with the other card that we just cut, right? The other piece of paper. So I just want you to kind of see that so you understand that this is one sheet of paper. This is one sheet of paper cut in half, and I can create 2 card bases. So you've cut it in half here, you've scored it on the halfway here. All right, let's look at the other one really quick before we move on. Here is another piece of cardstock. Yep, and so again, I've cut it in half here, so I've scored it on this side, right, in the half here. And so, you can score this one in half too, and you've got your 2 card bases. All right, so see, it's pretty easy to start those card bases, right? So once you have the card bases, let me just really quickly touch on cutting a few layers. All right, because I think layering is quite nice. And here, let me show you a couple cards and what I am talking about layering cardstock. So here you can see I've got an espresso, a white, and then I have some granny apple green. So these are 3 different layers. There's a 1/4 inch in between each one of these layers. So I know that it looks tricky, but it's really not once you learn how to cut these layers. So I have a little template here that I've created with some different colors, and I've added the layering. I'm going to show you 1 inch of layering, okay? So here we go. We're going to start out, this is the A2 size of our card, right? So here's the front of our card. So there's really no layering there. That's the front of the card. Okay, so I'm going to set that one aside. So the next layer down, if I'm going to go a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch is going to be 5 1/4 by 4. So here we go. This one is going to be 5 1/4 by 4. So here, let me show you. Maybe it's just easier to kind of layer it up like that. Do you see that? So I cut it down a 1/4 inch. And then if I want to come down the next size, I'm going to cut it down another 1/4 inch. So then I would need to go 5 3 3/4. So there you go. Like, it doesn't want to get perfectly layered because of my fingers, but it is quite nice, right? All right, and then you have 5 3 3/4. And if you're going to bring it down 1/4 inch, you're going to move into 4 3/4. So here's 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. And then 1/4 inch is going to be 4 1/2 by 3 1/4. So that's how you're going to layer your cardstock down by 1/4 inch. And when you look at your Stampin' Up! Trimmer, I think it's really nice to be able to kind of take it, and if you see that, if you kind of line it up on here, this is what 1/4 inch, it's about how big it is. See, that's about 1/4 inch. And so you're just taking your cardstock down about 1/4 inch, and you can kind of see that. And it would be the same thing in this direction here, right? So when you're cutting it. So let me just kind of take my paper. See, it's 1/4 inch. And I like it to look symmetrical on both sides and kind of keep it nice and keep it layered just like that. All right, so that was a quick introduction on cutting your card base and layering your cardstock. We're going to get into more detail on layering your cardstock and some of your images up later on in my video series. But right now, let's keep it easy. Let's cut some cardstock. Let's get some paper, ink, and stamps, and you can start to create your cards. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the bell so that you're notified of my future videos. I'm so excited to start this beginner video series for you. Many of the videos that I have coming for you are the questions that I get all the time from folks that are just wanting to get started with their paper crafting and stamping, but they just don't know where to start. And sometimes it can feel a little intimidating, but I'm here to show you it's really not that hard, and you can do it too. I promise you, if you stick with me. So don't forget to go to BrandysCards.com, and you can subscribe there as well so that you are notified. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love the opportunity to help you and earn your business. Please reach out to me at BrandysCards.com/contact. Send me an email. Let me know that you're interested in some catalogs. I can get those out to you right away so that you can see all the wonderful products that we offer and cardstocks and colors and that sort of thing. And of course, answer any questions that you might have. Now, before I go, I want to show you, I do have a matting matchups PDF. I'm excited about this PDF. It's going to show you the sizes or the dimensions of, layering your cardstock 1/4 inch down. That's right. So that will be available on BrandysCards.com as well in the bottom of this video. So you'll be able to download that and print that off, and hopefully you'll find that as a helpful resource in your card making. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you on video number 2. Bye now.